Okay, so the other one we're going to talk about is called Loft Nurbs, and if you click on the Nurbs here again, this is the one that sort of looks like a, I don't know, a raised up tube or a, like, I don't know, some sort of shape, some sort of lofted shape, I guess. So what Loft does is, in order to use the Loft Nurbs, you need at least 2 splines, okay, and they don't have to be closed splines either, but at the beginning it helps out to do something kind of simple. So if you just grab maybe a couple rectangles, for example, move them apart from one another. So just drop in 2 of those rectangles, and then maybe with one of these, let's just scale it down a little bit so we have these 2 shapes. All right. Notice how they're placed far apart from one another. And then if you take both of these guys, you can select them by just clicking the Shift key and grabbing them both. If you drop both of these into the Loft Nurbs, what it's going to do is it's going to create a shape that connects those 2 objects together. All right. So, and in this case, you can easily control. If we move this up and down, you can see you can easily control the way that shape looks by just moving around each individual object. Okay. So, you can also, you can rotate this as well. So, you could really, if you think about it, you could really make a pretty highly detailed object by using multiple spline forms to create that sort of shape and form. Of course, it's also putting caps on right away, but you can really contort and change how this thing comes together by controlling those 2. Let's just move this guy out of the way for a second. Move this guy over here, make it a little bit wider, and then let's grab another one and put it in here as well. So grab a circle, and notice it's always dropping it in the middle too, so that's why I moved that guy out of the way. You can also you can have as many of these in there as you want. All right, so I could add a 3rd one in here. If I drop it in, put it in between the 2 rectangles, literally in the hierarchy. Make sure there's a rectangle on top, circle in the middle, rectangle on the bottom, and then notice what's happening here. I'm going to scale it down a little bit. So it's moving from a rectangle to a circle form and then back to that other rectangle again, right? So you can get really highly complicated objects just by changing the different types of splines that you add into there. And of course, again, you can really distort and move things around based on the placement, the movement, the angle of these different splines that you add into the place. Okay. Now lastly, if we go to the Loft Nurbs and check out the Attributes Manager, again you have caps just like you did in the Extrude. You can change the caps, add those different things exactly the same way as the Extrude. If we go to Objects, you can also change the subdivision. So sometimes if you have a lot of different things going on, when you render this out, if you just click the Render button here, you can see there's a little bit of angulation in some of the curves here. If you wanted to make it more, more visible, then you can change the subdivisions. So if you if you change this to a higher level of subdivisions, if we move this up to in the 50s, then we're going to get a much smoother form. So you can really control it that way. There are other things you can do here. If it's an organic form, you can click organic, and it's going to give you a little bit more of the rounded kind of quality to it, which sometimes comes in helpful. You can loop the form. If you click on loop, what it's going to do is it's going to try to connect the beginning to the end. So it doesn't really work so well in this setting. You see, it's kind of like trying to do that sort of form there. If we click off of this, if we have these guys actually rotated down a bit like this, I think we should be able to get a kind of a loop form out of this. Just change that one there. Bring this guy down. Let's see if we can get this to loop better. There we go. Okay, so see how now it's taking that form and it's kind of making a loop out of it, right? So you could get really, I don't know, pretty interesting abstract forms out of using that tool to sort of change things around. And of course, again, as you change the position of these objects, it's going to change the type of form that it's creating, right? So you can really, you can do a lot with these objects just by kind of moving them around, playing with them, playing with the different settings in the Attributes Manager, to create something that's pretty interesting in its form and abstraction. So especially with organic types of objects, things that have bends in them, curves in them, this becomes a really powerful tool in that way as well. Any of the other things here? That's pretty much it. So so experiment with the Loft Nurbs, experiment with the Extrude Nurbs, and the assignment for this part of the project is to make an object using both Extrude Nurbs and the Loft Nurbs, combining them together. Again, as many of those combinations as you like to create an interesting representational or abstract object.